Welcome back to the Week 6 college football betting locks and predictions, and let's get right into it with the recap of last week. Let's start with the Friday game where we had Washington playing at Rutgers. Rutgers gets away with it here. Washington misses a late field goal. Washington outgained Rutgers in this one, but a couple turnovers came back to bite them. Rutgers ends up winning. They're still undefeated and move to 4-0 and continue in Big Ten play this week at Nebraska. Washington, unfortunate loss in the Friday spot across the country. Then we had another betting lock on Kansas State minus 5.5 against Oklahoma State. They end up running away with it after a troubled start. Oklahoma State just is not that good of a football team, and K-State gets back on the winning track after losing to BYU last week. Speaking of BYU, they played Baylor. Baylor had a chance to win this at the end of the game, but BYU gets the stop they needed and barely escaped with this one in Waco. They moved to 5-0. Very impressive season they've put together. They've beat SMU, Baylor, and Kansas State by now in the season. Very impressive so far from BYU. We'll see what they do in the next few weeks in Big 12 play. Maryland at Indiana. Indiana takes care of business there. Louisville gets some unfortunate turnover luck and fourth down luck in this game. They were 1 for 5 on fourth downs, add in a couple turnovers, and that's not a recipe for winning. They only lose by one possession, so Notre Dame takes advantage there, gets back on the winning track, but Louisville will look to right the ship against SMU this week. Then Southwest Classic, our third lock of the week. We had Arkansas to stay within the 5.5. And they do. They don't win the game. Again, they've just been super troubled in Jerry World for these Southwest Classic games, so they're probably very excited when they stop playing at that neutral site next season. Texas A&M takes the win, but still drops down on the AP poll rankings. Very interesting there. But Arkansas covers for us in that one. Second page, Ohio State against Michigan State. Didn't go with a play on this one. Ohio State takes care of business there. Then, the best game of the week by far, Georgia at Bama. Bama runs away with it 28-0, gets it to 30 with the safety. Georgia starts carving up the Bama defense that was playing pretty conservative in the second half, but Ryan Williams with the massive touchdown at the end to swing it back and swing back our bet for us. Bama ends up winning by 7 when they add on the 2-point conversion at the end, easily covering that +2 in the hook there. Illinois at Penn State in the pseudo-whiteout game here. Very good game. Penn State ends up winning. A little boring from the scoring standpoint. Penn State doesn't cover, but they do win. Good 14-point win there. Fresno State against UNLV, and we had some trouble in this game develop over the week. UNLV QB Sluka leaves the team over a alleged $100,000 NIL payment. We picked UNLV to win. Spread ended up not changing too much at his absence, moved, maybe 2 or 3 points. UNLV ends up running away with it. The key question here going forward is whether this was a 1-week blip for UNLV, the team being galvanized when they lost a player, or whether this can continue. They have a tough game against Syracuse at home this week, so we'll see what happens there. Oklahoma at Auburn, and this is a diabolical beat for our Auburn +2.5 play. Auburn really should have won this game outright, but a couple missed kicks, turnovers, the late pick six, it all doomed this bet, which is brutal. We come up on the losing end despite 50 minutes of hard work for Auburn there, and the turnovers come back to bite them once again. It's despicable because they have a argument to be 5-0 team, but they have just been on the short end of the stick. Now they fall to 2-3. Oklahoma gets back on the winning track. Very much needed for both these in the midst of the SEC gauntlet. North Carolina at Duke. Duke wins the game. North Carolina covers our +2.5. So everything is swell there. And UNC will move on to play Pitt this week. Meanwhile, Duke stays undefeated there, playing a pretty patty cake schedule so far. Janty and Boise State run away with it against a formerly good Washington State team there. Boise State rises up a couple spots in the AP poll. Good game for Boise there, and they seem to be a power in the Group of 5 ranks. We'll see if they would have made the playoff either way, regardless of the auto bid. As we go down the stretch, they have a key game with UNLV coming up at some point as well. Arizona at Utah, we got this one very wrong. Utah ends up losing outright, kind of starting to tarnish their Rice Eccles at night stat that they had running a couple years ago with the consecutive wins and the consecutive wins at home stat, but Cam Rising doesn't play here, and that kind of doomed this bet from the start. They couldn't muster any offense, couldn't muster anything on fourth downs, and Arizona just outplays them a bit more on offense. The thing I was surprised about was Arizona's defense, but maybe it was just a factor of Utah's offense being so bad. So we come up on the short end, and Utah doesn't even win the game. So big head scratcher there. And then we had Cincinnati at Texas Tech. Tech ends up winning this game. It was a high-scoring shootout there going on concurrent with the Georgia-Bama game, but Texas Tech does win by 3 and improves to 4-1 in that one. So let's move on to the Week 6 betting locks, and we'll start with the Syracuse UNLV game I mentioned. I'm going to take UNLV to win. They're about a 4.5 point favorite right now. I think that they will win. We'll see what happens, how many Syracuse fans are traveling, but it's an AP poll ranked UNLV team. If the crowd is 50-50, that's probably all they can expect there at Allegiant Stadium. but I expect UNLV to win this game, although it is pretty close to a toss-up. That's why I have no action on that game. Then we have Missouri at Texas A&M, and Texas A&M is actually favored here. Mizzou has played close with Boston College and Vandy, nearly losing both of those potentially. I think this is where their undefeated streak comes to an end. Texas A&M gets right at home. There should be a capacity crowd at Kyle Field. I like A&M, regardless of the quarterback, to take this one home. Then we've got SMU at Louisville. Another play here. Louisville -6 in the hook, right under the key number. SMU maybe got a little bit luckier against FSU, but they certainly also were lucky in that TCU game. And did they lose to BYU? Yes, they did. And Louisville is coming off a loss to Notre Dame. All that kind of concocts into a scenario where I think Louisville has something to prove here, and I think they go out and dominate the Ponies that may not be ready with the style of play that Tyler Shugg and Louisville are going to bring to them on this early game there. Then we've got Pitt at North Carolina, and I'm going to take North Carolina plus the 3 points. If you can get it, just wait until that number goes up there. Get on the key number, and I think North Carolina actually wins this game outright, but always good to have that cushion just in case. Pitt has gotten a little bit lucky this season to be that 4-0 record. They put up 73 points on Youngstown State, so how much credit do I really give them for that game? But the power ratings loved it. I think they're being a little overvalued here. Let's take UNC and a little bit of candy early in the fall and ride with the Tar Heels. I think they win outright there. Then we've got a diabolical one. This is a number play. Wake Forest coming off a G5 loss to Louisiana. We like them to stay within 5 in the hook of NC State team that's been very up and down, just coming off a win against NIU at home. Starting to play better, but I think Wake has the horses to stay in this game. Then we've got Tennessee at Arkansas, and this is another team in the SEC that you could argue should be 5-0. Were a couple horrible turnovers in that OK State game from winning that one, and then this TAMU game for Arkansas was just a disaster, and it was one they really should have won. So I like them to take all these frustrations out on what should be a rested Tennessee team, but Tennessee again on the road after playing on the road at Oklahoma didn't seem to have much trouble there. I think this is Arkansas's last stand, and I like them to stay within the 14 and perhaps win this game outright if they can control the turnovers, maybe even win the turnover battle. That's how they do it. Finally, on the first page, we've got Michigan at Washington. I think Washington, honestly, is a top 30 to 40 team right now. Should have beat Rutgers there. Not sure what happened to them in that Wazoo game for the Apple Cup, but either way, they seem to be a quality squad. Michigan, coming off a couple fraudulent wins, were one play away from losing to USC, so came up a little lucky there. Minnesota got jobbed a little bit on that onside kick. It looked like they were actually onside, even though they were called off. That would have given Michigan fits. They end up winning by 3 and earn the Little Brown Jug, but not sure that they can take it across country in the championship rematch, not to mention any extra motivation from that Washington perspective, especially from that of the fans there. I like Washington to win by 1 and the hook there at least. Then second page, we've got Ole Miss at South Carolina, and I'll pick a little upset for you guys. I think South Carolina is going to win this football game. This would have been a betting lock if Ole Miss was able to barely escape from Kentucky last week. Unfortunately, they lose, so I could see this one going either way, but I think South Carolina finds a way to get it done in Cocktober there. Rutgers at Nebraska. We're going to take Nebraska -6 in the hook. Again, we're riding both sides of that Rutgers-Washington game. Washington severely outgained them. And even though we were on the right side in that one, I think Rutgers is due for a little regression here. Nebraska, their scores have also looked a little bit worse, primarily because of the kicker, who is horrible. So we can account for that somewhat. I still think Nebraska's gotten a little unlucky. Need to mitigate the turnovers, need to mitigate the sacks, play their game, and I think they win by 7+. Remember, Colorado also looking like more of a decent team, so that also values that Nebraska game over them a little more. But we move on to Iowa at Ohio State. I think Ohio State gets it done here, but a game worth watching either way. We'll see how this Iowa offense responds. Remember, their one loss is a pretty tough one against Iowa State in that Cy-Hawk rivalry. So brutal one there for them. We'll see if they can keep it close with Ohio State on the road. Then Bama at Vandy. Little letdown spot here. I'll take Vanderbilt plus the 24 in the hook. And this is a game I could see going a couple ways. I could see Vandy losing by 10 or less, maybe even shocking Bama. This spread's a little wide for that, so I'm not going to call for anything like that. But I could also see Alabama getting up by 40+, putting the game away, but even then, the back door is still a little bit open for Vandy. I expect this crowd to be mostly Bama fans traveling to Nashville, especially after that massive win they got last week. But Vandy is coming off a brutal loss of their own at Mizzou, so I'm going to back them here and hope that they can keep it somewhat close. Then we've got Colorado State at Oregon State, another diabolical one. We'll take Oregon State -13 in the hook. Colorado State, one of the 10 to 20th worst teams in the nation. We think Oregon State's a little undervalued at 13.5. That's a good number for us. We think it should be around at least 16, 17, maybe even upwards of that. So we'll see where this one moves throughout the week, but that's it for that. And then Clemson at Florida State. We like Clemson to win there. That spread has gotten out of hand a little bit. And then final two games, one game day, Miami at Cal. And I'm going to take Cal to pull off the outright upset. This is a key game here, no play on it because Miami does get the win there. Cal coming off the loss at home. The spread's about 12 in the hook. This could be a play later in the week if we can get like 14 points. We'll see if that is where the line moves. Miami absolutely gets away with one at Virginia Tech. We'll see if they get the takeaways of a loss without actually having a loss. But Cal should come out motivated, should be a decent to good fan presence here. You know, they're having game day for the first time in Berkeley, so we'll see what happens there. Very late game, after dark. Should be a great one. I like Cal to win outright, but obviously low percentage chance that that happens. They probably need to win the turnover battle, but I think that they might be able to muck up this game, especially if Virginia Tech was able to do it on the road with a far greater spread last week and arguably should have won. So then we've got Texas Tech against Arizona, and I'm going to take Arizona to win here. That should be a very engaging matchup. Lots of points flying in that one, and I like Arizona to keep the wagon rolling there. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and comment your predictions below.